In this video, we're going to show you how you can create an angled shape in Aspire. So we're going to use a set of closed vectors to demonstrate this tool. So to start with, let's go over to our Design tab. We're going to go into this tool to create an angular shape. And here we have all of the options in order for us to create our angled shape. Now before we start, let's just take a look at our view control. We're just going to set it to look at this angle, and then in order for us to start creating a shape, we need to select or assign a vector, and you'll see that with this vector selected, we're now presented with two handles to begin with. Okay, so we've got a handle here that enables us to control the wall angle at which our shape is created within the vector that we've got here. And then this handle over here enables us to control the base height, which is essentially a flat height that will sit below the angled shape that we create. So in order to begin a shape, simply click on your angle profile handle, so with your left mouse key, and then you're just going to drag that up, and you can see this cone is being created, and you can see that when I let go, I have an angle here of 80 degrees, so that's where it maxes out. If I wanted to decrease that, I could just go back into my handle and I could just bring that down. You'll see a handy field on the right hand side there, and it's just updating constantly, telling me what that angle is, and if I wanted to be more precise, I can simply type in a value within this field. For example, I could put 45 in there, and I could go ahead and press enter to accept that. Now, if I wanted to create a negative shape, I can simply pull on our handle, pulling that down, and you can see those numbers are getting less, and now we're in the negative numbers, and that'll create that negative shape for you. In this case, let's just go with a nice positive shape like so. Okay, so we also have the option here to adjust the base heights. At the moment we have a base of 0, and we can increase that if we wanted to, and you can see it's just creating a flat shape underneath with height. Okay, and then a top tip here, if you double click on the base height, that will just revert that back to 0 there for you. Okay, once you're happy with your shape and all the adjustments that you've done with it, then you can give that component a name if you wanted to. So for example, we could say angled shape, and then we could apply that, and then we can close out. And then we can take a look at the top here. We can see our angled shape component has been added to our level drop down over here. We can also view that in our components tab, where we can see our component tree. We can switch off the visibility of that if we wanted to by checking that option there. That's worth noting that since you've created your shape, it actually has no relevance to the vector that it was created from. And we can move that around, and we can look at sizing that and editing, making further edits to that if we wanted. And so whilst we haven't adjusted this shape, we can press E on the keyboard, and that's going to take us back into the angled shape where E represents edit shape. And then here we have access to all of those handles again for us to make further edits to that shape. Now, if you wanted to delete the shape, you can simply press delete on your keyboard and it will remove that. To start a new shape, simply go and select a new vector, and then begin the process again by pulling on the angle handle to create your shape initially. So then we have other handles that enable us to further control the shape that we've created. So this one here enables us to limit the height, where it essentially cuts it off with a kind of flat plane. And so if we take that, it's currently at 100%. So that limit is at 100% of the shape. And then if we just reduce that down, you can see it's flattening that off for us, and it's creating a nice effect there. And you can kind of just keep adjusting the shape by dragging that handle up and down till you're happy with how that looks. On top of that, if you wanted to, again, you could look at adding in a base height. Then over here, we've got the scale factor. So here we can alter the scale of the angled shape that we're creating. Again, you can just use the mouse to drag that up and down, you can see we're getting precise values shown in that field over here. Alternatively, you can go over to the form and see that as a percentage. And so if you wanted to revert that back to its original scale, you can put that back to 100% in there like so. And then we have the ability to adjust the total height of the shape that we're creating. Currently it stands at 0.542, and that's based on the scale factor at 100% plus a base height here. And then if we go ahead and adjust that, so bearing in mind your scale's at 100%, base height 0.1816, and if we just tweak that like so, you'll see that those values will also update here. So now the scale's at 64.86% and your base height is now at 0.1178. So just kind of adjusts that in proportion. And so ultimately you've got lots of different options to really control the shape that you're going to create. Now whilst in this mode, if you press N on the keyboard, you're able to access node edit mode in order for you to further change the shape that you've got here. So for example, we could take this handle over here, we can move that over, and you can see we've got this kind of crescent shape now. And again, if I right click just to come out of node edit mode and then click on the shape whilst we're in the angled shape tool, we can then access those handles there to, you know, further control the shape that we're creating. And if we close out here, and then if we take that shape and if we just control to create a copy of that, again we can further edit this shape. So again, if I press N on the keyboard, whilst we're out of the create angled shape tool, we can make further edits to the shape that we've got there. And then if we press E on the keyboard, we come out of node edit mode, select the shape, then press E, it's going to take us back into that angled shape, where again we can make further adjustments to this shape like so. The only time where we won't be able to access the create angled shape or any of the tools that we use to actually create that is if we altered the component by adjusting the transformation of it. So if we stretch that out, and now if we press E on the keyboard, you'll see it just takes us to the component properties tool, because we've totally took that out of its original primitive shape, and so we no longer have access to edit the additional handles that we saw in that angle shape form, where we can adjust the angle, the limit, and dynamically make those changes. Or we just have access to just the basic options where we can adjust the total height, the scale, and the base height. Okay, so let's just press Ctrl Z just to undo that. We'll close out, and actually, in fact, we're just going to take that and we're going to delete it. So now let's have a look at some further options that we can use within that angled shape tool. So go back to the Design tab and we'll go back into the Create Angled Shape form. Let's select this star. Okay, so here we'll just go ahead and create an angle like so. Okay, you can see that's quite high, so we're just going to reduce that down a little. Now we do have the option over here to preserve internal corners, and it does just that. So if I select that and just turn that on, you can see it's just really keeping those nice sharp corners there, which is perfect for things like stars or even letters. So for example, if I wanted to create a new shape, I can simply select a new vector, and then again I could just go ahead and assign an angle, and whilst that is still selected, the preserve internal corners, you can see I'm getting nice internal corners. If we just switch that off, you'll see the difference there, it's kind of rounded them off. But we can do that, we can increase that, and then what we could do is we could look at bringing down the limit like so, and you can see we've got a real nice effect there, nice beveled edge, nice sharp corners. Okay, so that's using the preserve internal corners option. Now if you wanted to create a shape that's created from between two vectors, so you can see here we've got this square here and we've got this square here. If I wanted to create a shape in between those, I can select the two vectors here, so you can select multiple vectors. And again, if we just go ahead and use the angle option, and we can just start to pull out our shape, and you can see we can create some really interesting shapes there, and it'll just create that angle between those two vectors, and so you can see the effect of that here. So let's have a look at this option here. So if we click on that, so it's going to give us further options for us to control this shape, whereby we can look at changing the combine mode of this component and how it combines with other components in here. We also have the option to add a fade and a tilt. So we're going to look at those now. So a fade will enable you to fade a component down in terms of the direction you set it and at what percentage that you fade that down in comparison to the overall kind of scale of your model. So in order to do that, you simply check the fade option. And if we just have a look at this from the top view, then you need to set your anchor point. So you press the set option here, and you'll see now my cursor is represented by an anchor with a number next to it. And that's the software's way of telling us we've got to set our first anchor point. Okay, so this is where you want to fade from, which I want to fade from the left hand side, and I want that to fade down over across to the right hand side. So I'm going to click on the left here, and you'll see now I'm presented with this line. And if I now select my second anchor point, so the direction at which I want to fade this down, I can simply click to apply that. Now if I take a look at this down the front view, you'll see that it's actually fading down. If we just select that just to open up this form here, you can see it's fading down. It's fading down at 50% here, and we can increase this using the slider, and we can see the effect of that, or we could decrease that to a point where we don't have any fade at all. Let's just uncheck the fade option, and now we're going to look at the tilt option. So similar to fade, except tilt applies a angled base height. So you can see in this graphic here, so it's just going to kind of raise part of your model up. So again, let's just go back to the top view. And in order to do this, we need to check the tilt option, use the set option. We want to set from left to right, so we can click and then click onto the right position. Then again, let's just go back to our front view to better see this. And then if we go to the angle slider, you can see what it's doing there. So it's applying an angled base height in order for us to create that tilt. And tilts and fades are perfect for enabling you to create the illusion that one component is in front or behind another component, which is really useful in most modelling procedures. Okay, so let's just undraw that option there, and then we can close out, and we'll just put that back into this view over here. And so there you have it. You've got lots of different options in order for you to be able to really have full control over the shapes that you're creating using this tool. So that completes this tutorial. Thank you for watching.